Hey, Dave Melenda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. I want to take you all the way back to when you were a kid and think about when your parents started to talk to you about living up to your fullest potential. I know my parents were always trying to encourage me to live to my fullest potential. So then something happens where you end up growing up and somehow we leave that piece. So today I'm honored to be hanging out with Jenny Toh. She is actually the founder of River Life Coaching, and we're going to kind of unpack that today. How are you today?
Hey, hi, Dave. I'm glad to be on your show. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We had to find you on the island of Singapore. So you're actually way end of the day. So it's the beginning of the day for me, end of the day for you. Like we said before, we don't want to know how the day goes. Okay. Don't spoil it for us. So, but
Sure,
thank
Dave.
you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. So I, in preparation for today, I love that question of, are you living up to your fullest potential? So tell me a little bit about how that piece plays into your coaching.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to share my transition journey actually. So my first career is I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for more than 24 years now. And it was sometime in 2015 that I first got bitten by the coaching bug in the organization that I was working for. But I never pursued training to be a coach because I have a daytime job. It's pretty busy. And on the home front, I have 3 kids. So I pushed it away until around December 2018, when I felt that I couldn't push aside this feeling anymore. And it was more than a feeling, it was going to the extent of being uncomfortable every
Mm,
time that I think that, oh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So Dave, I'm a Christian, and I believe that this is what God has called me into in this season of my life. So
sure.
naturally, lots of discussion with my husband, lots of prayer, lots of debating back and forth, because we're both very intellectual people. Like, my husband was asking me, can't you keep this as a hobby? And the answer was no. It's just that the feeling's just so strong. So I made that commitment to train as a coach. I did that in 2019. And while I was training, I made up my mind to launch my business in 2020, incorporated a company, didn't know what was lying around on March 2020.
Yeah.
But COVID hit, and I launched my company in April 2020, simply because I felt that I waited so long. And if I trust God in this,
Sure.
let's just take that leap of faith. So it's been
Sure.
going well. I mean, as all entrepreneurs know, there are ups and downs, but it's been a really good journey in terms of me growing as a person and also as a coach.
That's awesome. So I'm going to go circle back to some of the words that you used and talk about those. Think about if you're listening and you can identify with what Jenny just said, where you are actually uncomfortable at times. So when you were uncomfortable, what did that mean? What did that look like? Kind of take us through that if you can, Jenny,
Okay.
just to help the listeners, be able to identify that in their own life.
Yeah. Well, it's not rational, I would say, because when we're talking like, should I make it just a hobby, do it in my
Yeah.
free time? I toyed with that idea, and then this deep sense of grief came about. Like,
Hmm.
like I feel that I'm called to take this over and beyond just being a hobby. And it was very strange because I didn't even start my business then. So why am I grieving the loss of something I never had?
Sure.
And I talked to a few other people, and one thing led to another. There were confirmations that this was what I'm supposed to do. So I mean, for your listeners who are not believers of any faith, you will also get this feeling when you know that something's not quite right in you. You feel that you need to do this, but you're saying, I've come up with all sorts of excuses. Think about the excuses that you're giving yourself. Are they really true excuses, or you just don't like to grapple with uncertainty? Because I'm a planner, so I
Sure.
don't like to grapple with uncertainty. Yeah.
Sure. Wow. So that's so funny. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being vulnerable in this because, there are a lot of people that are listening that somewhere deep down, they are thinking, man, I wish I could do that. Or maybe they know somebody that's successful at doing business on their own, whatever that is. And for as many people as I talk to, there are that many different ways that it happens. And so, I think on the outset, I want to just say that I don't think there's any one way. I'm sure here Jenny's going to say the same thing, that, whatever works in your world is fine. She's just sharing with you the uncomfortableness, and think about it to the point where it's actually grief, and so there are times where you have these, sword in the sand moments where you're like, no more, I'm not doing this, I'm done. Whether it's an addiction, whatever it is, where you're just done, with that. In this case, for me, it was kind of the same scenario where I just knew I wanted to own my own business. And it was not, I didn't have a grief, I didn't have all this, but I had plenty of excuses. And the more you plan, the harder it is, because that's, like you said, it's a leap of faith. So do you remember like the first day, Jenny, of transition from, is corporate, I was going to say corporate America, corporate Singapore.
It's all right. Yes.
From corporate Singapore to, that first day of owning your own business. Do you remember that first day?
Well, I did it as a side hustle. So it's like a gradual transition because,
Gotcha.
I am still very rational. So I would say that, like you said, different people do it differently. So I didn't go from all to, all corporate life to being a life coach. So I kind of balanced between the two.
Gotcha.
Because again, I'm a planner, right? So I was like planning worst case scenarios, and
Sure.
of my legal training, I'm trying to see all angles and all aspects. But I remember thinking like, wow, okay, this is going to be an amazing journey. So, we get all hyped up about starting a new business. Then when the months goes on, I discovered also that it is quite a lonely journey in some ways. And I needed to regain my focus, ask myself, why am I doing this in the first place? And then for me, it's drawing back on my faith and my purpose. And that's what's keeping me going.
That's awesome. And, that's a great kind of a check-in point for people that are listening, that regardless of if you own your own business or not, it would be interesting for you to just stop for 5 or 10 minutes and really answer that question of, why am I doing this? There's plenty of people that are doing it for a paycheck. There's plenty of people that are doing it for the benefits. There's plenty of people that are doing it because that's just what they've always done. So do you help people in that transition, Jenny, if somebody's struggling with those types of things? Is that kind of what your coaching practice does?
Yeah, so it depends on the goals or the issues that my clients bring, but quite a number of them are also at this crossroad of career transition. Should I still continue doing this job, or should I just call it quits because I'm burnt out? So I draw that person back to reflect what their values are. So a lot of people would say, oh yeah, I'm good at solving problems. I'm good at, strategizing. In reality, those are not your values. They are actually your strengths or your skills. So it takes deeper reflection for people to realize what their values are. And an easy way would be to think about a simple word. And if that word is not in your life, then that's really a core value. So for me, it's honesty, or what some people would say integrity. If I imagine my life without honesty and integrity, I can't see how I would live my life, because the Jenny that's in front of you, Dave, is the Jenny who will put my kids to sleep later, and it's the Jenny who shows up as the coach. Yeah.
Wow. And that's, I remember that, there was like the word of the year. John Gordon's a great author that I love to read. And they had, talked at the beginning of the year, of every year, coming up with one word that kind of wants to define your life for that year. And it really is a hard exercise because there's so many words, there's so many sentences you want to do. So, I think it's hard enough for us to do deeper reflection, like you said, but then to kind of narrow it down, if you can, to a word or two, or a strength, or narrow it down to a concept, whatever that looks like. That's really that I think that separates a lot of entrepreneurs, because a lot of us are just so busy going that we kind of lose the why, we lose the reasons, we lose the reflection. So, do you kind of have these, like, I don't want to call it a retreat because then everyone runs away, but do you have these moments in some of your training that you have to kind of start with? Is that the starting point, is to kind of have that deeper reflection?
Yes, yes. Like you said, some people might be overwhelmed as it is when they're coming to see me. So you tell them, oh no, I still need you to do this kind of exercises. So I started with a very simple exercise. It's actually from the University of Pennsylvania, their School of Positive Psychology. So they have a
Okay.
simple survey called Values in Action Survey. It's free because all my clients are like saying, I don't want to pay for this yet. So it's free. You just go into, set up an account, go into it, and there are just simple sentences, and all you have to do is not think so much about it. It's something like the strongly agree, strongly disagree type of question. So you just go with your gut and answer quite a number of questions, but it's not difficult. So I can speak from my personal experience. I've done the Values in Action survey at least 4 times over a period of 7 years. And
Okay.
my top 5 strengths have always been the same. The sequence may be different. So, like this year, it's coming up as honesty. Previous year, spirituality came up quite strong. So, I'm not saying that I'm no longer, a strong believer in the
Sure.
Christian faith, but somehow it changes a bit. It just dropped down. So, I can tell everyone that this is quite accurate. And all my clients who've done it definitely can identify with at least 2 or 3 that's like, oh, that is so me. And so I would strongly encourage your audience just to just Google Values in Action survey, and
Okay.
then just try it out.
Wow, that's so cool. Thank you so much for that. We'll try and get those in the show notes to be able to
Sure.
have that as a starting point. So, but so when you have deeper reflection for yourself, according to your LinkedIn profile, it says that you're actually an introvert. So
Yes.
you kind of discover that through this process, or did you know that all your life, or how did you first discover that piece?
Well, I think the talk about introversion only became trendy in the past few years. Before that, when I was young, I was shy. So there's
Okay.
this common misconception that introverts are all shy. There are shy introverts, but there are also people who are like social introverts, so they're not shy. So when I was young, I didn't know about introversion, but I knew that I was shy, and naturally over the years I've overcome my shyness. But to me, introversion is how I draw my energy. So if I'm in a large crowd or giving a webinar or training, I'm fine for maybe the 3 or 4 hours that I need to do it. But after that,
Yeah.
I really feel exhausted and I need to go away somewhere.
Yeah.
If you ask
Yeah.
me to hang around and talk to some more people, it's going to be a chore, but I have to do it, right? Because for the
Yeah.
business and all that. But I realized that, oh, I'm so exhausted after that. So I have friends who are extroverts, not that they need to be around people all the time, but even after that, the buzz of a party, they need to hang out with 2 or 3 other
Yeah.
friends, go for after dinner drinks.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, can I excuse myself? So sometimes
Yeah.
people think I'm a bit antisocial, but it's just to the point that I'm exhausted, literally exhausted. And that's when I realized, when I read quite a lot of materials on introversion, that's
Sure.
where you draw your energy from.
Wow. That's so cool. And I remember learning that for myself. And the question was, are you an introvert or an extrovert? And for me, I really thought for a lot of my life that I was an extrovert because I do enjoy this type of activity. I do enjoy, speaking, getting in front of people. I love all that. And I thought that made me an extrovert. Well, then I was exposed to that same piece that you just shared, on the back end, Jenny, that you actually have to look at what does that do? Does it drain your energy or does it actually energize you? And it was really evident for my wife and I. We used to be in the same association together for work, and so we would go to these networking events. And I'd be like, all right, let's roll. And then let's leave. And then we left. And she's like, all right, let's go do something. She was an extrovert, very like, we got to go do something. And I'm like, oh, honey, I got to go home. I just drained my energy and left it all there. And she's like, oh my gosh, we got to do something, So that was really foreign to me, but it really helped. And it was that deeper reflection that you talk about. It really helped understand that so that I didn't feel like I was doing something wrong and I didn't feel like I was less of a person, because that can be those self-limiting thoughts. Now I'm doing something that I really don't even want to do, but I don't even know why I'm
Yes.
doing it, but I just feel like I have to. So when did you realize that you were an actual introvert for yourself?
Possibly in my working years. So as a lawyer, and I used to go to court, and I could do very well before the judge, and with my cases and all that. But it's only after that then I realized that people still hung around and wanted to talk and be social. And I just felt that this isn't for me. And like what you said, I started thinking, is there something wrong with me? These people are actually people I like.
Yeah.
They are people I like. But at the same time, being in court the whole day, it is very tiring. So then I started just trying to research and find out, what is it that's going on. Then I came across the word introversion and extroverts. I mean, all along I thought the same thing, that what most people have been thinking, that introverts are shy and quiet, and
Yeah.
extroverts are the loud, robust ones. But you can find introverts who are, like you said, you enjoy talking and speaking and mingling with people. So there are introverts like that. But we all need our own downtime to get recharged and refreshed again.
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. And again, if you're listening, there's no right or wrong to it. There's no good or bad. Both of them, you're perfect the way you were created. So, it's just a matter of trying to identify it so that you can use it to your advantage and you can, understand it. So when people come to you and they're unsure if they're an introvert or an extrovert, or if somebody's listening and is not unsure, are there any simple ways that they can kind of, determine which camp they fall in, if that's important to them?
Well, nowadays, most people will come to me and tell me they're an extrovert or an introvert. So I think a lot more education has been out there on introversions.
Sure.
I can share a short story how I got my first client. So I was posting on LinkedIn, and I was posting posts to encourage introverts to show up in this world in their own authentic way. So this lady came to me and she said, like, Jenny, I like what you've posted, but can I tell you I'm an extrovert? Will you still take me on? Then I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll take you on because you're my first client. Of course, she didn't know then. So,
yeah, exactly.
So I think people are now more aware, but let's just say a client's not aware, and I can pick up nuances when the person says that, my managers just told me in my review, I need to be more visible. I need to show up more. I need to speak up in meetings. Then, if the person says, oh, but I find that so draining, well, what's the point in speaking up? I do my work, right? And I do it well. So what's this? Then you can sense that the person's not getting the energy if he or she is thinking about putting herself out there. So there is this limit, like you said, limiting belief or limiting mindset that I'm an introvert. Why can't I just keep quiet and do my work? Why can't people just let me be? So I can sort of sense that, okay, so this person probably has some introversion. And then we will go through coaching basically to discover what his or her values are. And from there, how to align your values with your career goals or with your life goals, because I see values as a compass. And my company, River Life Coaching, I use the analogy of a river to represent your life. So the river source is your values, and from there, that's how your life would flow. So if you're blocking your river source, if you're not aligning your life with your values, then your river will not flow.
Yeah. And that really comes all the way back to what we started with, was that's how you live your fullest potential, is really understanding that river in your life. So I think that's such a cool analogy that you have been able to share with people. I saw that you have a 6-week mental fitness program, and I was like curious about that. So can you kind of, share with us what goes on in those 6 weeks?
Okay. Yeah. So last year itself, I did a coaching specialization with Dr. Shazad Shamin. So he wrote the book Positive Intelligence. And then he taught about mental fitness using positive intelligence. So this is different from positive psychology, but it's part of a synthesis of positive psychology, cognitive behavioral therapy, neuroscience, all put together. So how he defines mental fitness is that, think of it like physical fitness. You need to be disciplined. You need to be committed. You need to do exercises. So the 6 weeks mental fitness program actually leverages the use of a phone app, which is from positiveintelligence.com. But because I'm a coach in the community, I can offer that to my client. So
Okay.
6 weeks, you use the app, and the app will push through what they call PQ reps, so positive intelligence reps. So it's like when you go to the gym, if you need to build up your biceps and triceps, you need to lift weights. So this is for building mental fitness. So they'll push through the reps. And the reps only take maybe 10 15 seconds to do. The purpose of it is to stop your mind from thinking, being hijacked by your saboteur thoughts. So this is your judge showing up or your perfectionist trait showing up. So to do the reps, you sort of move away from that, stop your autopilot thinking, and that gives you the opportunity to slow down and take a step back and look at the situation calmly and hopefully with a more peaceful perspective. Again, you may be able to do this if you're on a holiday, or it's a Sunday, but the whole purpose of this repetition is that you can do this even during a very stressful, busy day, to be able to command your mind to stop and then to think of the situation more objectively, rather than being hijacked by all these negative emotions like stress, anxiety, worries.
Wow. So is there like a simple exercise that you could share with us that we could
I was hoping you'd ask Dave, so we
yes,
can go into it.
Yes. All right.
We can go into it.
You
so,
take the show. You got the lead here.
Okay. A lot of people say that, I can't do meditation and yoga because I don't have half an hour to spare.
Sure.
I don't have a mat. I'm rushing for a meeting. So the PQ reps are actually the simplest form of this kind of exercise. It's just to increase mindfulness. So Dave, take your thumb and index finger, and then you just gently, thumb and index finger, and then you rub them together, and then you feel the ridges of your fingertips. Just pay full attention to the ridges and continue to feel it. And, just feel the sensation of touch. And Dave, I think when you're doing that, you're not thinking about, okay, which bill I haven't paid, do I have to pick up someone later? You're not. You're just focusing on the sensation of touch. And you just do it for 10, 15 seconds.
Oh,
and then
I could do that all day. It's kind of cool.
And then you find that you have quietened down. So I do this if I'm like preparing for a presentation beforehand to quiet down. I do this. Of course, a lot of people say do deep breathing. That helps too. So in his phone app, he pushes through a lot of these exercises that actually leverages on your 5 senses. So what we did was touch. You could do it with your sense of sight, hearing, smell, sound. So it's pretty cool. You don't have to spend a lot of time doing, your lotus position and trying to get centered. Yeah.
Well, and I think that that's so key today, because entrepreneurs are going to come up with a bunch of reasons why they can't do it. Like you said, I don't have a mat. How am I possibly going to do, a downward dog on a subway or whatever? There's all these things that come into our mind. But like you said, you're trying to remove. I think of it. Do you guys get snow in Singapore or no?
No, okay. We don't. We're near the equator, so it's summer all year round.
So but you know what snow is, right? Have you ever been in snow?
Yes. I was in the UK for quite some time, so yes.
Okay. So, for us, it's not uncommon to have 2 feet of snow on the ground in the wintertime. Okay. So I think about what you just said, and we have, like, if we have a path that we keep walking on every day in the snow, it just beats it down farther and farther. And the more that you walk that path, the easier it gets. So it gets to a point where you don't even really feel the resistance of the snow because it's packed down just like a sidewalk. Well, there's that. And then there's creating your own, walking in 2 feet of snow for the first time, is very difficult to do. And so I think that that's what, if I'm understanding what you're saying, you were talking about trying to change these pathways a little bit.
Yes.
And we're walking in snow for the first time. So the first few times it's going to be clunky. It's going to be hard to do. You might not get the result that you want. So how long does this take to kind of recalibrate your brain?
So that's why it's a 6 weeks program. So like you rightly pointed out, Dave, you need to start. And in the beginning, when you start, it's going to be difficult. And a lot of people feel that, oh, if I don't get it right the first time. So you've got your hyper achievers. That's one of the saboteur traits. If I don't get it right the first time, I'm not going to do it because I need to get it right.
Right.
And you set high standards for yourself. But the whole purpose of these exercises is for you to have awareness of the saboteur thinkings that you have in your mind, and then to recognize them. And once you recognize them, you are able to call them out easier. So if you know that you're a perfectionist, every time the perfectionist shows up, you realize that okay, that's not really me, that's just my perfectionist thinking. And how can I look at this from a different perspective?
Wow, that's so cool. Now I know why I could never do a musical instrument, because I think I say this all the time on the show. If I can't pick up a guitar or whatever instrument, and like I don't want this years of practice and I just want to pick it up and do it. And if I can't pick it up and do it, then I don't even try. So in this case, the interesting thing is, if that was like a limiting thought for me and I really wanted to play an instrument, but that was limiting me, this 6-week mental fitness program would help me through that. I would guess, correct?
Yes, but you will first go down to, you will do another assessment. So it's to know your saboteur assessment. So are you like a hyperachiever or a stickler? Stickler's a perfectionist. So you will gain insight of your top 3 saboteurs. And then from there, we will work on how every time these type of characters come out in your mind, you're not going crazy, they just come out. What can you do to not follow them? And like you said, to walk on a new path in snow. You don't have to keep walking the same path, because our saboteur thinking hijacks us and we just go on autopilot mode. So naturally, if you are a perfectionist, you feel very stressed if the thing's not perfect and you're unable to delegate. So moving away from that, you can see that, okay, I am good in A and B, but I'm not good in C and D. That guy is better. So why am I not giving him the opportunity to shine? You see, when you're quieter, you'll be able to see that your strengths and who can help support you.
Huh. So so the question is, what sabotages you, right? Is that kind of a question that, I've never even thought of that before this moment right now about what sabotages. I think a lot about self-limiting beliefs and self-limiting thoughts and try and not have those. It's interesting to look at what actually sabotages you. So you kind of have to do that again, self-assessment, self-awareness, before you can know what it is that you're trying to improve, correct, get better, whatever the words are. So, and is that through that 6-week mental fitness program as well? Does that help you with those sabotage pieces?
Yes. So the first step is to identify your saboteur. So if you don't know what you don't know, then you're never going to get better, right? So Dave, all of us have the judge. So he is the master saboteur. We have the judge, and the judge can show up in all sorts of ways, predominantly 3 ways, like the judge of self. So I could be judging myself by saying, Jenny, you're not good enough. So that's the judge of self. And then there'll be the judge of others, when you are making very quick first impression on others without even getting the chance to know them. So that's the judge of others. And of course, there's the judge of circumstance. So if you are running late for a meeting, then your mind starts spiraling downwards, thinking that, I'm going to be late for the meeting. Everyone's going to say, I can't keep time. My whole day is short. And you can see the negative thoughts just suck you down. So that's the judge of circumstances. So the judge doesn't work alone. That's how you know that you have saboteurs, accomplice saboteurs, to support the judge. So let's just say you're already late for the meeting. And if you're a hyperachiever, the hyperachiever jumps in to support the judge to say that, now people will think you're not credible because you can't even make it in time for this meeting. And before this, you're not aware. You're probably thinking that, I'm just stressed. Yeah, I'm just stressed. But if you are able to recognize that that's my judge and that's my hyperachiever showing up, you do a few PQ reps, whether deep breaths or the fingertip thing. Sure. And then that slows you down and you'll be like, okay, is it really the end of my world if I don't make it to the meeting on time? Then your mind is clearer. You probably can call your colleague and say, hey, can you run the presentation first? I'll be there in 15 minutes. Sure. It's so much calmer because you're able to see away all that clutter. But if
Wow.
you are hijacked by the judge, you're a hyperachiever, and who knows what else can come in, you're basically paralyzed, you know.
Oh my
But
gosh.
we always just assume that it's stress. We just say, oh, I'm stressed. But if you
Yeah.
think about it, it's not the stress, it's the way you look at things and the thoughts you listen to.
Wow, that is so cool. So like this judge, here's a cycle. No, physiological. I don't know what the word is. Philosophical. That's the word I'm looking for. So here's a philosophical question: is where does that judge come from? I mean, if everyone has it, where does that come from?
We are our true essence anytime before 7 years old. So there is also another deeper reflective exercise to reflect on how you were as a child before the
Okay.
age of 7. So after that, we're influenced by the people around us, our upbringing, and our parents mean well, but they could have imposed expectations on you to be perfect. And that's
Mhm.
how you got the perfectionist trait. So it could be school, friends, where you grew up, all
Yeah.
these things shape and mold you. So there isn't that one cause like, oh, how did my judge show up? It's just
Sure.
over the years of being conditioned and going through life's experiences. But if you reflect, if Dave, you reflect, try and remember if you were like 5 or 6, what gave you joy and how were you like as a child? That's your true essence. That's not, clouded by all this saboteur thinking. And you still have it in you. It's probably so deep in you, you don't know where he is, but you still have
Oh
him
my
in you.
gosh. That's so cool. Well, it's so funny when you talk about the judge like a third person, like the judge shows up. It's like, I love that because it really puts it into perspective how it isn't necessarily you, it's we talk a lot about image versus role.
Mm.
My role, just because hopefully my image of myself is always a 10, on a scale of 1 to 10. Hopefully my image of myself is on a 10, even though I might be my role as a driver, or my role as a dad, or my role as a husband, or as a citizen, I might not be 10s all the time, and I'm not 10s all the time. So we try and separate that image versus the role. This is very similar. I love that. I love that. That's so cool. So, how did these self-limiting beliefs that you talk about, do introverts have different self-limiting beliefs maybe than extroverts? What are some of yours, if you feel comfortable sharing one that you've identified along the way, a self-limiting belief for you as an introvert?
I think I hold myself back. So even though I know that I have the strength or the capability to do that particular task, but I see an extrovert who's more outspoken. So this is
Okay.
in my younger career days, I tend to hold myself back. Like, okay, he can do it better because he seems so confident.
Sure.
I can just quietly do my stuff in the background. And I realized that actually that doesn't help anyone. It helps him, but it doesn't help
Sure.
me. That I
Sure.
may get overlooked for promotions because they say, "Oh, Jenny, you're not visible enough." So one of the things that introverts may face is like, I don't need to be so loud, but you don't have to be so loud. You can show up in your own way. You can show your talents and skills in smaller group meetings. If
Mm-hmm.
you write very well, you can write. But unfortunately, in this day and age, visibility is very important. So you have to find your own way to be visible. And likewise, for this example, I'm using your show to be visible by appearing as a
Sure.
guest. And this is pushing myself outside the comfort zone because before this, I was like, okay, what's a podcast? I can't imagine myself doing it. And now I'm guesting on many podcast shows. And it's been fun because
Good.
I find that if I keep holding myself back, then your listeners, the listeners of other shows, will not hear this concept of positive intelligence, will not
Yep.
know their saboteurs. They'll be trapped thinking that this is just who I am. I'm never going to get to my fullest potential because this is how I am. I'm never good enough. But then if you realize that that's not you, that's just your limiting beliefs, that's just your saboteurs. If you can think beyond that, over that, then you can open yourself up to so many other opportunities.
Wow, that's so cool. So it kind of proves the snow situation. Your first time you were a podcast guest, were you really nervous?
Yes, and the lady asked me to do a YouTube video as well, but she was very nice. And how I got myself centered again was to tell myself what is the message that I want her listeners. That was a quite a the her audience was largely women. So what is it that I want the women listening to be encouraged? And that was,
Sure.
to come and step into their purpose, to not give up on their dreams. And I felt that so strongly. So we just started talking about that. And after that, I've been enjoying being a guest on podcasts. I haven't
Sure.
taken the other step, which is to host my own show. So who knows, Dave, that could be
Yeah.
happening down the road, but not yet,
Good. Well,
not
if
yet.
you do, I'd love to be a guest. So keep me on the list.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
but think about it if you're listening to just what just happened, because a lot of you might even sitting there listening right now, driving, walking, whatever you're doing, you might right now have something in your mind that you're like, wow, I wish I could do that. And I had that with when I wrote my number one Amazon best-selling book. I had those self-limiting thoughts. No one will read it. This will never work. What the heck am I doing? So I had that with when I started my podcast. We're 60, 70 episodes in. The first episode, I'm like, who in the world, is going to listen to this? And excuse me, I wanted to make sure that I really dealt with those thoughts, even though they were there. I mean, they don't go away, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. They probably don't even go away once you become whatever success means to you. They don't go away. It's just that you kind of find ways to work through that, right? So I really appreciate, Jenny's vulnerability here, because it's not easy to be an introvert and do some of the things that she's doing. The cool part is I feel like she can jump out of her skin, look at the situation from, an outsider's perspective, and kind of look at what's the worst that can happen.
Yes.
Really, what's the absolute worst? I mean, I think that like the written word is the easiest because you can erase it. Then after that, I think his video would be or probably an audio, because you can just say what you need and erase whatever. And then it rises up into probably the hardest would be live TV. That would be that when I've done live TV, that's like you don't get to push the pause button and try and do that again, because it's already out there.
Yes.
So wherever you find yourself, if you have a message and you want to get that message out, it doesn't matter what, way you deliver that message. Find a way that's comfortable for you, and then just kind of grow from there. I think that people, do you feel, Jenny, that people like stop growing? They get to a spot and then they just kind of stop growing. Do you encounter that much with your clients?
Yes. Yes, it's because it's safe to be where you are at. We all have our comfort zone. So the idea
Yeah.
of just even stepping 1 inch out is uncomfortable. But then you realize as you take those small steps outside your comfort zone actually grows. So maybe 2 months ago, I wasn't comfortable 2 inches out, but now that's my comfort zone. And now I'm pushing myself out. I mean, what you said resonated with me. What's the purpose of you doing what you're doing? Why do you write a book? Why do you launch a podcast? You have your reasons. And why did I go into coaching? I have my reasons. So always come back to your reason for doing so. There's no right or wrong. Everyone has their own reasons, their own desires and dreams. But the main thing is not to give yourself excuses to say that, oh, okay, I'm too old right now. So Dave, I'm 48 this year. You are not too old to start a new business. And who knows what
I'm older than you, so I'm older than you. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so we are both living testimonies that, you can have a new career, start a business at whatever age that you are. If you're coming up with excuses, take a step back and ask yourself honestly, how true is this? How true is this excuse? And of course, in the beginning, you will challenge yourself and say, yes, it's true. Yeah, I can't do this, and you come up with all sorts of excuses. Don't give yourself a chance. Just keep asking yourself, how true is it? Is it true all the time? Until you yourself, you're poking holes in your own excuses. Then you realize that, okay, I need to do this.
Yeah.
Another way is to reflect your elder self, maybe 10, 20 years down the road. What would your elder self, looking at your situation now, advise you? Would he or
Wow.
she say, why are you not doing this?
Yeah.
You're going to regret it. Think about it. Yeah.
Right. That's great. And I think as we start to come in for a landing today, I think that like this judge person that's in us, the harder the let's use the right word, the tougher that judge is, the less likely you're going to step out of your comfort zone, because it's, the last thing you want is yourself to say, see, I told you, I told you it wasn't going to work, and that's where I think sometimes stepping out of your comfort zone is equating to putting your hand in a fire. And people say, see that, well, don't, there's an easy way to not get burned. It's to not put your hand in a fire. There's an easy way to not get yourself in trouble. It's always stay in your comfort zone. So I can see how that can really self-limit you.
Yes.
And again, if you're listening and that's you, that's why there's people like Jenny. There's people like me. That's what we do. We come alongside you and we help you with those types of things. Somebody came alongside me and encouraged me and said, you can do this. And that sometimes that's all you need, is that, cheerleading from somebody else. So, I really appreciate all that we talked about today. A couple more questions, Jenny. I'm going to let you go. What would Jenny Toh's tip of the week be?
Practice self-care. I know it's very cliche, but I realized that for myself, if it's been a particularly busy week, as it was last week, I was grumpy, I was snappy at my kids, and I realized what happened there. And I discovered that I haven't been, taking time for myself. So it is important to take care of yourself. It is not selfish. Maybe this comes up more in women because we are all multitasking and like you said, we're playing many roles and we just don't take care of ourselves first. We've got 1,001 other people to take care of, but you can't do a good job taking care of other people if you don't take care of yourself. So taking care of yourself doesn't mean go and check into a spa or a retreat. It's just doing something simple that you enjoy. So it can be as simple as a cup of coffee or listening to music on your iPod, just something for yourself. Just do that.
That's awesome. Well, yeah. And I talked to your kids and they were kind of concerned last week. They said mom was a little snippy. So, I'm glad you identified that, because otherwise we would have had to have another talk. So that's so cool. But, do something. And I think when you said that, just as you were saying that, Jenny, there were things in my head saying, you're not worthy. You don't deserve it. You don't have time. Do 10 more things and then maybe we'll think about it. So those are probably all thoughts that rushed into your head as you were listening to this. So, just really be aware of that. There's nothing wrong with those thoughts. They're just there. Hopefully you're able to combat them and say, you know what, I am worthy even of a cup of coffee, or I am worthy of whatever, fill in the blank that is for you.
And Dave, imagine yourself as a 5-year-old kid. Would you care when these thoughts come in? You're like, no, I want to go play, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you would just go straight and do it. So just go straight and do it.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks so much. So here's always the fun question is we ask the question, if there's one thing that you think most people don't know about you that you feel comfortable sharing, what would that be?
Let me see. Okay, good question that caught me off guard.
That's good. That's why I like it.
It's nothing big, but on during the weekends I will play basketball with my teenage son. So I don't blog. I don't blog about this. I don't write about this in LinkedIn. I don't play that well, but he's much taller than me, so we play basketball together. He's taller, so
okay.
Who knows? I can shoot the shots. So yeah, but I think he wins most of the time. So he enjoys beating mom, right?
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. Well, hopefully he's not listening, because he'd say he'd win all the time by a lot. So that's awesome. So Jenny, if somebody wanted to get to, know more about you, something that you said today really sparked them. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn, or they can visit my website, riverlifecoaching.com. So LinkedIn, you just search Jenny Toh, TOH, or River Life Coaching. You can't go wrong. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is so cool. I took notes. I learned something like I do all the time. That's, I think, why I enjoy this podcast so much, is not only do the listeners get to, take a deep dive in with somebody like you, I learn stuff, and then it changes me. And then I'm confronted with, what do I do next? So if you're listening and you're at that spot, it's like, what do I do next? That's where I would encourage you to connect with Jenny. It doesn't, I think I saw there's like a 30-minute free call on your website, right?
Yes.
So, if you could, think about that, is just to be able to find 30 minutes of your life to just do some kind of deeper reflection and really walk away with the understanding of, am I living up to my fullest potential? Because I go all the way back to, like I said, when I was a kid and my parents asked me, and they really encouraged me in a positive way to live up to my fullest potential. What parent doesn't want their kid to live up to their fullest potential? And so, I don't know, like I said before, what happens along the way where we lose our way, but Jenny's here to help you, if that's important to you, to refine and recalibrate so that you can get back to your fullest potential. So thank you so much, Jenny, for hanging out with us. I learned a lot. I take notes all the time. I'm going to have the discussion with my judge here, and because that was the one I wrote down.
And rekindle your relationship with 5-year-old Dave. But it's been a pleasure being on your show, Dave. Thank you.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, rekindle there you go. See, now I got to write that one down. Oh my gosh, we're going to have to do this again. So hopefully you'll come back. And again, if you do start a podcast, I'd be honored.
Yes, I'll keep you in mind.
Yes, thank you so much. So
thank you
again. Thanks so much for being on. And again, please do something. Even if you don't call, it's fine. You know what? It's not about the call. It's about, you now have an obligation to do something with the information that was just shared. And our goal is for you to do something to move you forward. And if you need somebody to come alongside, that's what we're here for. If you want to find somebody else, that's great. If you want to do it alone, that's fine too. Just be better tomorrow than you were today. So thanks again, Jenny, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, thanks.